What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to another episode of the Fierce Framework podcast, where we talk about becoming fierce through messy action, baby steps, and cultivating confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm a down-to-earth confidence coach with ADHD. So I'm basically living proof that you can be both a shit show and a badass at the same time. I am so excited to introduce my friend Amickoleh to you today. She is the owner of On the Cusp Wellness, and that's her business all around helping people get more in touch with their soul level and their calling in life. She's so down to earth and approaches things in such an authentic, understanding way. So you already know I could talk to her forever, like all my interviews, right? So we did break it down into two parts for you because I was chatting her ear off because she is such a gem. And I know you're going to love her too, okay? So we've got two parts for you with Amickoleh. She's so amazing. You can find her in all the links. I've got all her links listed in the description or the show notes, wherever you're listening. And I'm just so excited for you to listen to this. Hi, Amickoleh. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to finally talk to you
Oh,
on the
thank
podcast.
you. Me too.
Because I know we started talking about it like from when we first met, and that
Yo.
was a while ago, but we are making it happen.
Sometimes things take time.
Truly, truly.
hmm
Good
I'm learning
things.
to be okay with that because time is really going by fast. Like I had a moment yesterday and I was like, it's 20, like, okay, I don't want to like make time go too fast, but it's almost 2025.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first even like conceptualized that one day it's going to be 2025, which was like back in like 2022. It just felt like that's so far away. Like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
and then I had a moment, I'm like, and now it's only a few months away.
Back around the
Like, and it
corner.
went by so fast.
Yeah, I'd be like,
So,
no, we're gonna have like flying cars and stuff by then. Like, there's no way.
man, it
And
just
like,
sounds like 20 years from now, doesn't it? Just like 2025. That sounds like another century. Like that doesn't
yes.
even sound like next year.
And I'm totally like in that millennial like time warp where I think 1999 was like 5 years ago. Like, so yeah, I just like
Oh, the 90s. Loved her. Loved every minute of her.
the best, truly. Lost a good one. So tell us more about yourself. What should we know about you?
Oh, wow. That's such a loaded question.
I know, so
Um,
answer however you want, because
oh
I
my
also hate that
gosh.
question.
It's like, where do I start?
Right. So many
I typically
facets.
just start with my story. So I am from all over. I was born in Los Angeles, California. I grew up in Georgia. I was gonna say I went to college in New York. I didn't go to college in New York, but so my background's in fashion. And so I interned in
Yes.
New York and ended up staying there for about 7.5 years, working in the fashion industry. And then in my Saturn return, which is my late 20s, around 27, 28, I had this spiritual awakening. I was listening to a podcast which is why I love podcasts so much. I was
That's
listening
me
to a
too.
podcast that I was a huge fan of. And one of the guest speakers that day happened to be a friend of one of the hosts. And just hearing her talk about her life, hearing her talk about like how she moves through the world, I was just sitting there like, what the hell is she doing that I'm not doing? Because I'm over here busting my ass.
Yeah.
I work in two jobs. I got a full-time job and a part-time job living in New York, And I was just like, nah, I need to figure out what tea she's sipping on and move on over to that timeline. And
Mhm.
that just like started me down this rabbit hole of like following my intuition, learning about energetic medicine, like going down all the spiritual rabbit holes. I've always been a lover of astrology. So I got even deeper into that. Human design was just coming onto the scene. So I started getting into that. I was just like, who am I? Why am I here? What am I meant to do? Like being in this cubicle, working in this fashion job, which I got into fashion because I was like, I want to do something that's creative and
Yeah.
can at least guarantee me a job at
Right.
the end, which happened. But I just woke up one day and I just realized like what am I doing here? Like anybody could be here. Like I'm not
Mhm.
here because like there's something I'm I especially bring to the table, or something about this that I am just like, oh, this is my purpose, or this is what I meant to do. It's just like I'm just here, you know. And if I were to leave, they would hire somebody else, and it would be nothing. You know what I mean? So I just kind of started
Yeah.
looking at that, and I was like, no, I don't want to just wake up and go to work and go to sleep every day, like, and then like live my
Yeah.
life on the weekends, like,
Mhm.
you know. So I got tired of that, and then the pandemic happened. We all loved her. But what I will say was, for me in the pandemic, because a year and a half prior to the pandemic, that's when I was really deep into my spiritual journey and all of that,
Okay.
and just getting really connected with myself and just healing. It really provided like a really great structure for me to just like go even deeper, you know. So once I
Mhm.
kind of like, you know, I feel like the first few months of the pandemic, we were all just kind of like on pins. We are like, okay, they're telling us to stay home. We don't know how long we're gonna be staying home. And like, what are we doing for money? And like, how do, like, you know, it was just like very kind of like every day you were like, I don't really know. So it
Yeah.
took me a second to kind of like just ease into the fact of like, oh, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So let's just
Yeah.
go, like, how can we support ourselves in this process? Um, so I started doing that, and I felt called to start a business. I felt called to create a course around like all the things that I have been doing for myself, and how I had been supporting myself energetically and
Mhm.
spiritually and emotionally, mentally. So I created this course called Activate Your Soul, and that's is essentially what led me into starting a business. And
I
that's how you
love
and I
it.
met, essentially. It was a
Yes,
couple
it
years
is.
later after I started that business. But yeah, just the path of entrepreneurship, you know, that's
Yeah.
really that's the journey that inspired me to really just be like, okay, like we're really committed to figuring out like who we need to be.
Mhm.
How do we become her? How do we become really grounded in her? And it's unfolding every single day. I think I have finally cycled out of the mentality of like, okay, I become her and then like everything's done. Like we're good.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very disappointing reality.
It really, that was a hard one for me. I was like, so I'm just never done. You just keep doing this. You just, wow, this
I
is just
know.
goes on forever. There's always more to learn. It's exhausting.
There's always more to learn. Mm.
So that's why you have to learn to love it, because you can't just be exhausted and sad
Listen.
about it all the time.
Yes. a
Trust me,
hundred
I tried.
percent. 100%. Yeah. You get burnt out. You get burnt out with like just trying to be a better
Yeah.
person. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Ooh, that's yeah. Because I feel like I love that you said that, because I feel like it's so easy to get caught in like the um self-development or whatever, where you're like
Hmm.
always like pushing so hard to grow
Yeah.
and do better. And it's like, yes, it's important, but it's just like exercise. You know, it's just like growing
Hmm.
your body. You're growing your mind and your heart and your soul. Like, you also need rest days. And I
Oof.
think like sometimes we forget that. And it's
Hmm.
like, because holding those two things of like, you are enough now,
Oh,
and you're growing and you're getting better and you're always going to be growing and learning. Like, I think I'm still, it's one of those things that I think I know, but I'm like still learning,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's real. Because it's always like, it's always evolving. Like just that concept in and of itself is always evolving in different ways of our lives. You're like, oh, like
Yeah.
even when I'm like driving to the grocery store, like, oh, like even when I'm like rushing to go meet up with a friend, like here too. Like,
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah. So I would love to hear more about your course. Is that, you said you started Activate Your Soul, and like that's kind of what started your business? Is starting with the course?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was. So it started with the course. So it's a 7-week program around chakras. So it really centered the core principles around the seven primary chakras. But then also there's like emotional wellness components, emotional like kind of intelligence pieces, in that as well. And so I did that for a few years, and it's still something that like even that vision in and of itself is it's growing and shifting. And I feel like for the past 3 years, I have been wanting to like get that back off the ground and like get that back up and running. Because I was able to take 4 clients actually through that course.
Oh, cool.
And as I've grown and shifted, and this is all like very recent for me of like why don't we just let her rest? Why don't we just let her rest? Like, there's still more to do there,
Mm-hmm.
but let's pivot just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just come over here and go down this pathway, go down this timeline for a second, because there's more medicine that you're going to be able to extract here that's going to come back around to the course.
Mm.
And so I feel like when you and I connected, like that was like, how do I get my course back off the ground? Like I was able to do, I was able to get a few clients into the program. How do I get back there? How do I get back there? How do I get back there? And I feel like the last 3 years I've been trying to figure out, how do I get back there? And I recently come into the awareness of like, there is no getting back there.
Right.
Like that is not where we're asking you to go right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking you to come over here and be of support and be of service in this way. And I feel like that way, which is actually like pivoting my whole entire like business model and structure into like being more of a one-on-one client based business at this point in time. But I didn't realize that I didn't feel like that was enough. Like I didn't feel like just me showing up, working with clients one-on-one, coaching, like just supporting them in the ways that they intuitively need to be supported was enough. I feel like I needed the course, you need this, you need workshops, you need that, you need data, you need to have all these things so you can prove to people
Yeah.
that you know what you're talking about, so that
Yeah.
and and recently I've just been like, okay, let's restructure. Like literally the past couple of weeks, like last night, I actually spent a good portion of my evening redoing my brand design, redoing colorways, repicking fonts. I was like,
Mm. Okay.
we're going back to the basics. And I
Perfect. Yeah.
was very hesitant about that for a long time because I felt like
Mm.
that means that I'm starting over and I failed. It means that what I
Mm.
did before wasn't good enough, and now I'm having to come over here and do something else and start over from the
Yeah.
beginning. And I was like, I don't want to start over. I don't want to start over. Like I've been
Right.
doing this for 3 years. Like I shouldn't have to start. Like I was just very like indignant about it. And
Yeah.
I was just like, no, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have to do that. Like I shouldn't have to do this. I haven't da, da, da. And I finally got to a point of surrender, and I was like, okay, spirit, what do you actually need from me? Because I've
Mm.
been trying to do the things and nothing's working. And we get into that cycle of like, but I've been doing everything. I'm doing all the things. Like,
Yeah.
are
Where's
you
my
really
prize?
though? Yes, where's my prize? Um, so yeah, so all that to say, I find myself at this really beautiful space of pivoting, and it is inspired and sparked so much just like life and passion and joy from our work again, because I'm realizing it's not that I'm starting over. It's not that what I did before wasn't good enough. That was just the flavoring and the sauce that I put on it. I was telling myself
Yes.
that this is what this means because this is why this is happening, and I just realized that's not true though. Like everything, it all matters. There was all experience learned, there was all lessons learned, there were lives that were impacted, and that gets to be plenty. That gets to be plenty for you to be able to take what you've been able to accomplish already, pivot into this new pathway, pivot into this new structure,
Mhm.
and really operate from a place that like truly lights you up and is in alignment with your soul purpose.
Yes.
And that's what I do. That's my work. That's what I teach people. So it's like, how am I not? What you talk about? Like, what do you mean? Why
That
are
is so
you not
humbling when you're
doing
like,
what you're supposed to be doing?
you like learn a lesson, you're like, oh, I've been telling people this for years. Like, I thought I knew this. Like, why am I acting like I just got here?
Yes.
But I love what you said so much because I think it's so relatable. And so
Mm.
I'm gonna ask you to expand on it because I think
Yeah.
so many people get to that point where you do feel like you're starting over. And I think like part of what I want to talk more about on the podcast is like it is so normal to pivot. And
Hmm.
especially I think like when you're, just a brand new baby to the business world, you don't really
Yeah.
know like you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so often I think we try to figure everything out before we start. And then once we get
Child.
started, like so much comes to you once you get started. And
Mm.
then you realize like I'm over here doing my thing. I'm like, actually, I want to be way over there.
Yeah.
And I think that's so common. And so I love that you're talking about pivoting. And I
Mm.
love that you're talking about like the very real like challenges that we have to overcome of feeling like we're starting over and maybe feeling judged that we're like all over the place or um
Hmm.
And then I love, love, love that you're like, it's what you make it mean.
Yeah.
Because you can make it mean that you're failing, or you can make it mean like, I loved that season. I loved everything I learned. And I love how you're still like open to it. Like, I can come back to the course anytime.
Yeah.
I can set it down for now and I can pick it up whenever the time is right again. It's not like, yeah, like there's
Yeah.
no failure until you stop trying. So like you can
Yes.
always just start again and you're still going because you're still
Mm-hmm.
working on your business. You're even more in alignment.
Yeah.
Sorry, as I was gonna let you expand, and I'm over here. I was like, there's just so many good
I
things.
love it though. No, yeah, because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Hey, so we're always talking about our dreams and making progress towards our goals on this podcast. But what if you don't know where to start, right? Maybe you're so full of amazing ideas that you have a hard time narrowing it down and picking something to start with. Or maybe after years of not having a say, you don't even know what you like or what you want anymore. Either way, I got you, okay? I created a free course that's just for you. It's a 5-day training on how to find your focus. It's super easy because all you gotta do is you sign up and I'm gonna deliver a lesson to your inbox every day. The course is all about helping you hone in on what lights you up so that you can focus on one thing at a time and start making progress towards your dream. It's super easy to sign up. You can go to thefierceframework.myflowdesk.com/focus. I know it's kind of long. Thefierceframework.myflowdesk, that's my FLO desk.com/focus. I've also got the link in the show notes, or you can always DM me at the F.I.E.R.C.E framework and I'll hook you up.
What I've learned about this process, I'm hosting a workshop in a couple of weeks called the medicine in reinventing yourself. And I feel like so many of us, you know, we're a lot of us are our millennial selves. Like we are birthed from that baby boomer generation where it was like you get into one thing, you stick with that thing until you die.
Yeah.
That is what you do, you
Yeah.
know? So just this idea of like going over here, doing this. Okay, that I actually got into that, realizing that's not fully what I want to do. Now I'm gonna go over here, that's calling me. Now I'm gonna do this, that's calling me, you know? And just really trusting that path because it does feel like you're all over the place. And that's one of the things that I'm gonna talk about in my workshop is like it does feel really messy and it
Mm-hmm.
does feel chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you start to cultivate your medicine. That's where you really start to tap into like your magic. And I think a lot of us are like we're very multidimensional, we're very multifaceted. So just this idea of feeling like, okay, well, I started my business off of this course, so I have to be a course creator business person, you know, it's like that after a while that starts to feel stagnant and stifling because your soul is like, we just needed you to get that was the landing pad, you know, that was like the
Yes.
jumping off point. Like we just
That
needed
was
you to get
step number
started
one.
in some exactly. That was step number one. There's more work to do. And I love what you said about, you know, like, you know, you start in one place, but then you realize, actually, I want to be way over here. And I literally had this realization yesterday. Like, I kid you not, yesterday I recorded a video and everything. I was like, I'm going to record this in real time.
I love that you documented it. That's gonna be
Yes.
so powerful coming back to you.
And I was like, the reason why I've been feeling stagnant and stifled and the work has been feeling so hard is because that chapter is being, we're sunsetting that chapter. We're just
Mm-hmm.
putting a pin in that. Meanwhile, there's this whole other source of abundance of work. You want to do some
Yes.
work? Here you go, girl. We got you right over here. We just need you to get over here. You can do the emails, you can do the social media posts, you can do all the things over here.
Yeah.
You know? And it feels like I've just been kind of like observing myself. I'm like, this feels so different. The emails don't feel
Mm.
like a struggle. The landing
Mm.
page doesn't feel like this, whatever, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up with content doesn't feel like da da da. Like I'm excited about what I'm talking about. I'm excited about sharing this wisdom and this medicine with other people. Of like, it's okay to pivot. And I promise you, if you use this pivot wisely, it's going to pivot you even deeper into your purpose. And I feel like that's truly
Ooh.
what we need people coming online to. Like if you're going to pivot, if you're going to course correct, if you're going to change lanes, make sure it's going to put you closer into why you're here on this planet. like,
Yes.
period. You know what I mean? And I think when we're not in alignment or we don't know how to resource ourselves in that way, it feels very scary. It feels
Mhm.
very daunting. Of course, you're going to bring up your whole laundry list of other ways that you failed. So why in the hell would you do this? Like, you know, and so we really have to kind of start peeling back those layers and get to the core root of like, why are we allowing these beliefs to become barriers? Why are we allowing these beliefs to become blocks? And what are they blocking us from?
Why are we allowing? I love that because I think so often like we think it just is what it is and it's happening to us and it's
Mm,
like doesn't have to be because you're
yeah.
making it mean something and you
Yep.
can make it mean something else.
100%. And just reminding people of their power. Like, I feel like my shift, I don't know, I had a day. I went into meditation. I was just like, Spirit, just show me. Just
Mm.
show me. And when I got out of that meditation, I was like, no, like it's up to you. Like it's up to you to shift how you approach your work. It's up to you to shift how you approach life. It's up to you to look at what energy that you're bringing into your experiences. That's on you, you know? And I was like, you're right. It is on me. Like I can do this right now. Like I don't know, it just felt like this unlocking of like it didn't feel daunting. It felt like an invitation. It felt really
Mm.
exciting. You know, it felt like I get to change my circumstances right now. I don't need to wait for X, Y, and Z. Nothing. I Because what I'm waiting on is me.
Man, that's the story of my life. Because you're like waiting for the right circumstances, or you're like waiting for things to fall in place, or you're like, wait, and you're like, everything actually is waiting for you to start
Hmm.
moving or to decide or like
Yeah.
take that step.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's powerful, dude. I love that. I'm like, wow.
Thank you.
All right. So you are focusing on that course now, right? The medicine of reinventing yourself?
Yeah, so it's actually going to be a
Okay.
workshop. So that's going to be happening on
Workshop. Thank you.
October 23rd, 1 p.m. Pacific time. So if that's something that resonates with you, I really, really invite you and you know your listeners to come and check it out. But we're going to be talking about the three soul disruptors that block us from really looking at like our soul truth, from really being able to access our soul medicine. And
Mm,
really soul medicine is just like what are the combination of skills, resources, talents that you have that your life has birthed through you, has given to you. You know, we talked about being multidimensional, multifaceted. It's like that's when we kind of tap into that component of like, okay, I do this. Like for myself, I'm a very multifaceted creator. I write poetry, I do intuitive writings and channelings and just like channeling medicine for my higher power, for my cosmic team. I'm also a singer-songwriter, I'm a photographer. So it's like that can often feel like, okay, one of these things is supposed to like make me successful. One of these things is supposed to make me successful. And it's still like that capitalizing on one of these things. And what
mhm.
I've had to come to realize, it's everything. Use it all. How can you use your poetry and your photography? How can you use your music and your writing skills? Like how can you do it all together? Like what is that combination of skills that you have that it may seem like to someone else, okay, that's a lot of shit. Like, girl, like, what are you doing? But you're the one that makes it make sense. Like, you're the one that ties
Yes.
it all together. And I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty of us really tapping into like our soul purpose and really being
Mhm.
aligned with our soul's desires. Like, what is your soul actually like craving and calling to like birth through our life, through our
Yeah.
beingness, through our bodies? So come to the
Oh,
workshop.
yeah, I know, right? Like I'm gonna have to get this episode edited early so we can give people a heads up. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Cause I mean, like, that's our, like, you know, you always hear people talking about abundance is your birthright. This is your birthright. That's your birthright. But it's like, that's how you tap into that stuff. It's like
Mhm.
truly being who you are and figuring
Yes.
and allowing yourself to discover that, allowing yourself to explore and experiment. You
Mhm.
know, like there's such a stigma around going against the grain. Like it means that you're crazy. It means that you're this. It
Mhm.
means that you're that. You know, you're gonna be broke forever. Like that's not safe. And it's like, well, the people who are all rowing in the same direction, I don't know how many of them are happy and frolicking in the hills. Like, I don't know.
Because like where is everyone going?
And what
Like
girl?
what is the guarantee that they're gonna get where they want to go or where they're supposed to, like there that realization was huge for me of like
Mm.
I can check all the boxes. Like I can keep pushing, I can keep burning myself out. I can keep doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. I can be a good little corporate girl.
Mm-hmm.
Um for what? Like there's no guarantee that that's going to get me anywhere. There's no
Yeah.
guarantee that I'm not just going to not have a job or
Yeah.
that like you can work a full-time job and have an entire career and still not be able to pay your bills. So like there's literally
Hmm.
no guarantee, even in the
Yeah.
short term, let alone the long term, that I'm like on my deathbed feeling like my life meant something or that I'm like
Mm.
satisfied with how I live. Like so people talk about like going against the grain, it's like so scary. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
we don't talk about how scary it is to do all the right things
Mm.
and not know where we're going with it. Like that is terrifying
Child,
to
you better
me.
go ahead and preach that now. Mm.
Because we act like because everybody's doing it, then like the mainstream, like we act like it's gonna work out for you.
Yeah.
Because it has to, I guess, because everybody's doing it. We're like, it's actually no promise that this is gonna go anywhere good. So at least like I can go off and do my own thing. It might not go anywhere good either, but I'm gonna have way more fun. I'm gonna
Yeah,
feel so much more fulfilled and like,
I
yeah,
agree. I agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
the whole going against the grain, like being crazy is so backwards.
It's oh my goodness. Oh yeah. It's just and I mean it's just fear tactics. It's just something to scare you into staying status quo.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
And
I'm like,
ensure that you're a cog in their machine.
I was like, don't get me all conspiracy
They
theorists,
need
because
pieces
yeah, they
now.
need workers.
They
Yeah,
need
exactly.
workers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, there was something else you said that I loved that I was hoping I could remember, but
It'll come back.
it'll come back eventually. So, okay. So I love the reinventing yourself. Oh, yeah. I love how you were talking about earlier with
Mm,
like being raised by boomers. And so many of us are in this like same stage of realizing like what we were raised to do and what we were told would work isn't actually working,
mm-hmm.
because you hear so much like online, the advice is like niche down, niche down, niche down.
Yeah.
And so even that, like as a creator, as a business owner, you're still hearing the same things that you were told by your boomer parents of like pick a career, pick one thing, like cut off all your other interests and
Mm-hmm.
parts of yourself so that you can really hone in on this one thing.
Yeah.
And yeah. And like one of the things that came to me while you're talking is it doesn't have to be confusing. I
Mm.
think that because we're told we're confusing or we're
Mm.
told we're all over the place, like then we believe that. And so then
Mm.
that's how we present, right? Or like that's the energy we bring is like, because I hear myself being ADHD, I talk about it all the time. Oh, I'm so scattered. I'm so all over the place. I'm such a shit show. And like, I'm not worried about it because I don't really believe that I am, but it's still like
Mm-hmm.
you're saying those words, you're repeating
Yeah.
that rhetoric. And so it's like when you bring that, like you're presenting yourself as like, oh my gosh, I just have all these things and I'm like all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're able to own it, which I feel like you're like embodying right now, like when you're able to
Mm.
own it and be like, actually, I am one whole person, I am multi-fat, this does make sense
Yeah.
because these are all parts of me.
Mm.
And like you completely change the perspective because you're not buying into that you're all over the place and that everything's like crazy and you're so scattered. You're
Mm-hmm.
actually fully together and you're like, these are all parts of me, these all make
Yes.
sense. And so I think it's so powerful that like when we're able to believe that about ourselves, then we're able to like help it make sense to other people
Yes.
because you're
100%.
making it mean something.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I love that so much. As you were sharing, I was like, this is that exactly what you just said about how we continue to perpetuate this idea of like essentially being fragmented, being all over the place, being in
Fragmented.
parts. And that keeps you, I talk a lot about shadow work, and that
Mm,
keeps all of your different pieces in the shadow. If you're like, no, I have to, like I said, I have to close off this one door because I have to focus on this other door. Well, what
mhm.
happens? to the little person over there that's behind that door? They just gonna sit in the dark, like, and just be like,
Yeah.
completely malnourished, like,
You think that's gonna work out well for them? Like,
come on, so it really, yeah, it really is that, and I love the piece that you said about we're also in the business world, entrepreneurial world, we're still being told niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down, which doesn't mean to say like, okay, like, have 10 different businesses going on, while you're like just getting started, period, as a whole.
yeah.
But it's also, I think it's more along the lines of like, how can you focus on what's always say like what feels the loudest? How can you
Mm,
focus on what feels the loudest while still honoring the other parts of yourself? And where can those other pieces come into play with what you're feeling called to focus on the most?
mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I love that because I think it's so important to not completely cut that off and like reject focusing on one thing at a time
Yeah.
because that's super powerful. Focus is actually what the F stands for in my framework. So it's like that's
Yes, I
literally
can't
what
even
we
talk
start
about
with.
that. I can't even talk about that.
Because like, especially when you're beginning, because it's like there's so many opportunities and so much potential. And like when
Mm-hmm.
you're starting fresh, you're like, I'm gonna start a business. You can
Yeah.
start anywhere. You can do
Yeah.
anything. And it can be really overwhelming. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just like so much opportunity and like everything's so fun. But then it can also be so discouraging when you do a little bit here and you do a little bit there and you do a little bit there and then you're not really feeling like you're making progress anywhere
Right.
because you're not building, you're just laying a foundation over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%.
So I love that you brought up
100%.
focus because like yeah, you don't have to like cut off parts of yourself, but also it's so powerful to like start with one thing
Yeah.
and have that be the focus and then add on or set that down and then something else is the focus in the next season or
Mm-hmm.
however it works out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you start to see how they actually connect the dots. Because even like, going back to my course, and I was like kind of having a moment with spirit. I was feeling really like, so you just want me to put it like you just want me to stop trying? Like what?
All this work.
And what they showed me, they were like, no, like by you being able to focus on working with clients one-on-one, you're still going to be using those exercises. You're still going to be using that
Yeah.
framework. You're still going to be
Yeah.
using that principles, but this is going to allow you to really hone in on what's the most impactful, what's the most effective. You know what I mean? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I like that.
You're like, oh, actually,
That makes sense. Okay.
I love it. It's like when you stop just blindly resisting, not that you were, but I do this a lot.
I
I'm just
was.
like, no, no, no.
Definitely was.
And then you let yourself be like, wait, okay, what if?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you start like, or with like with me with my anxiety a lot, I'm like, I'm just anxious. I'm just anxious. And I was like, what am I afraid of?
Mm.
And then when you actually like dig into it, or you're
Mm-hmm.
like, what is the resistance here? And you're like, oh, I'm, worried about being overwhelmed, or I'm worried about this, or worried about that. And then you can start like finding solutions. Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, if you're truly overwhelmed and you can't handle it, you can take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Or if, there's something you can do, then you can set up a system to support you if you know something's likely to come up. Like,
Yes.
so it's just like, yeah, like don't just like blind resist, but like dig into it and you start finding
Yes.
solutions. And I love what you said. You're like, oh, I like this. Like this is actually okay. So it's like when we confront those things, it's so powerful. I don't know why
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to do, but it's like, yeah, you gotta really just allow yourself to acknowledge it and be like, what is actually going on?
Yes, yes. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about in my workshop is this idea of like
Mm,
grief as a gatekeeper. And I think one of the things that, at least for me, what came up for me about my fear around this pivot, it just feels like, well, all that hard work for nothing. Because like you said earlier, I'm trying to get to the reward. The reward is
yeah,
success. I'm trying to be successful.
yeah,
And you're
yeah,
telling me like, so all that means nothing now? Like I'm just gonna go do something else, And I think it's that fear of like, is all of this hard work, whatever you sacrifice in that process, does that
right.
just go to waste? Like that just doesn't mean anything anymore.
Mhm.
And it's no, that's not true. It's like one of the ideas around grief as a gatekeeper, it's like honoring the past and honoring, okay, I started a course. I was able to get through 4 clients to move to that course. They had great results. Like, I myself learned a lot about in the process. My knowledge has continued to grow in those, like I had to really start looking like, what did we really accomplish here? Because I keep telling myself the story that it's not enough. I didn't do enough. It didn't go far enough. It didn't do this. It hasn't gotten that. I'm only focused on the deprivation. I'm only focused on the lack, and I'm not actually seeing what's true.
Mm.
you know and that is what keeps us blinded to like what actually wants to be born next. What next step can we take? What's calling us? What is our desires, our soul desires? Where does it want to navigate us next? Because if you're so focused on what it isn't, what it can't be, and what it couldn't be, and what it hasn't been, you don't even have the capacity to even reorient yourself and be like, you know what, I can give myself a pat on the back. We did good here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Did it go 100% the way I planned? It did not. Did I want a little more? I did. That's totally okay. you know where are we going next? How can we use that medicine? How can we use all those lessons for our next pivot, for our next point, of action? And that was a place that when I finally let go of like, okay, the course isn't happening right now, so what is happening? Then everything came through.
Right.
then I
Yeah.
saw the path. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. Copy. Got it.
Oh, so I had to set down what I was holding so I could receive the next thing.
Mm.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh my God. Yes. First of all, can I, this is, life, we're all a work of progress and practice. And as you said that, I am reminded of literally me in Target 2 days ago.
It's so good.
I'm just gonna grab a few things. I don't need a basket. I don't need a basket. I'm not trying to spend that much money. I don't need a basket. So grab a few things. Grabbed a few things
How'd that work out for you?
and then some. And then one of those things began to fall. I said, oh shit. Where can I go? Let me reorient myself. And in the process of me trying to not drop anything, I accidentally didn't see these row of lamps underneath me. And one of these little wooden lamp, knocked over another lamp that I didn't know was there. That was a glass lamp.
Not the lamp dominoes.
So I broke a lamp at the Target. And I will say, I was so proud of myself because in the moment, I was like, I could see where old me would have been like, oh my gosh, like, how could you? You knew you had too much stuff. You should have grabbed a basket. How come you didn't grab a basket? Da 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 da. And I was like, oop, shit, broke a lamp. Let me call an attendant and let them know I broke a lamp. Let me go get a basket now. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't put myself through that barrage, of all the ways I'm a bad person and I'm a bad customer. And da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da, da. I still spent $50 at Target, so I probably bought at least half that lamp. But
I
so it's
love
just like
that so much.
noticing those moments like that where like old me would have completely like, I would have caved in like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, like like just like, oh, shrank down
Yeah.
so
Like you're the
heavy.
first person who's ever broken a lamp before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I really just handled it with just like, we knew that this could potentially go left, but we took that risk anyways. And this is what happened. That's okay. Now we know. you know?
Uh, that's so powerful. Like, because we do that so much, and it's like, what is beating myself up getting me? Like, what are we really doing
Like
here?
truly.
And am I really so like prideful that I think I'm better than everyone else, and so I should be held to these higher standards than everyone
Mm.
else? Because lamps break, and I know that lamps break, and I would never
Mm-hmm.
berate someone else for breaking a lamp. So where is this random,
Yep.
ridiculous standard that like I'm supposed to be held at when everyone else is allowed to be human? Like that's
Mm.
insane.
Ooh. Ooh.
Oh, like
Mm.
I just really think I'm so good that I could be here and I could hold myself to this standard when I would never do that to someone else. It's
Mm.
crazy.
I love that you said that. I love that. Yes. It's like we don't allow ourselves to be human. We don't allow ourselves to make mistakes. And actually, I saw your video the other day about perfectionism.
Mm,
And what came and I resonated with it so deeply because I feel like that's a lot of the layers that I am breaking down within myself, repurposing, we can call it, composting, all of the things. And I've also realized there's a lot of rigidity in perfectionism. You don't get to make a mistake. You don't get to accidentally break. You don't get to have accidents. Like, you know, like you
No,
don't get to be a
literally.
human
Yeah.
being, you
Yeah.
know? And I was walking with my dog the other day and having a moment. There was so much, you know, like it's like crap and trash all over the place, and da 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 da. And I was just like, oh, like why is there trash all over the place? Like, oh God, I can't stand like living over here, blah blah blah, complaining. And something in my spirit was like, you can't expect to go through life and not come across a piece of shit every once in a while. Like, I was like, you don't think Oprah walks down the street and comes across a piece of shit every now and again? You don't think Bill Gates walks down at the park with his dog or whatever, comes across a pile of shit every now and then? You don't think Beyonce comes across a pile of shit every now? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes shit happens. Like, literally. And like, what is me being like scoffing and offended and like so offended? Like, ah, like,
Yeah.
universe, like, how could you send this to me? Like, like if you could just like calm yourself down for a second, like this is not a personal attack on you.
That
It's
part.
just how shit happens.
We take things so personal. At least I do.
Yes.
Yes. Like this is happening to me specifically. You're like,
Yeah.
no. Everybody walking down the street is experiencing the same trash and the same shit. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not a personal attack. Part of life. Oh man, thank you so much for listening. She's so fun, right? Just full of gems, so kind. So, if you enjoyed this episode, you're definitely going to enjoy next week's. It's just a continuation of this same conversation. Some of my favorite takeaways from this first part of the conversation are how we were talking about you're enough now while you're still growing and developing and improving at the same time. Those two things can be true at once. And I think that's such a powerful reality that we often overlook. Also, I loved when she said, why are we allowing these beliefs to become barriers? And why are we allowing these beliefs to become blocks? And what are they blocking us from? I know there's so much that's out of our control, especially with everything that's going on in the world. And so it can be really easy to forget, what things do I have control over? And what things can I change the meaning of? You know, if I'm telling myself I'm failing, is that really true? Or could I also tell myself that I'm trying and that was just a mistake and I'm trying again? So, loved when she said that. Another thing, her point of when she was talking about sometimes what you're waiting on is you. You're sitting around waiting for the circumstances to change or everything to feel right. And in reality, like things will fall into place once you start taking action. I've seen that happen in my own life, and it's like you think you learned something and you just forget how true it is. So I can't emphasize that part enough. And lastly, one of the things I loved is, why do we hold ourselves to an unrealistic expectation of perfection when everyone else is allowed to be human? Like, give yourself the same grace, allow yourself to make mistakes just like you allow everyone else around you, the people you care about, to make mistakes, and you still see their value. And I know I said that was the last one, but this is the last one. You can't expect to go through life and not come across a pile of shit every now and then, okay? Quote straight from Amickoleh. That's so real, because I think that sometimes, like, as you're working so hard, you're improving yourself, or like you're so intentional about what you're putting out into the world, and then just seeing shit can be so discouraging. But what we were talking about in this episode, right, is how can we reframe that to be like, it's not a personal attack. Sometimes it's just part of life. Okay. So check her out. Definitely check out her workshop. I've got the link there as well. And then stay tuned for more good stuff with Amickoleh next week.